Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Europa Rediviva. First and foremost, I would like to begin by asking you kindly to join my channel, become members on my channel, because otherwise it's becoming rather hard for me to monetize this content and this effort just by advertising from YouTube alone might not be financially worthwhile. So I'm not gaining enough traction organically on YouTube and deriving advertising income to an extent that would allow me to continue this work. So if you can, I would like to kindly ask you to join my channel and to support me financially through becoming members by paying a monthly fee, because otherwise this endeavor of mine might have to stop. This being said, Romania is undergoing this energy crisis right now. Well, the majority of Europe is suffering from this drought. But what is specific in the case of Romania is that it has taken down energy producing capacity in the past decade and a half, especially its thermoelectric system. So Romania used to have, back in its years when it was industrializing, it used to have quite an extensive coal-based thermal power plant system. And ever since the year 2000, more or less, it started to close its mines. And ever since, well, the idea was initially to have the thermal power plants operate on imported coal because it was cheaper. So we imported it from Poland. But then it was decided, because of this European Union strategy, ever since we became members of the European Union, to shut down the coal-fired power plants altogether and to take down quite a lot of Romania's existing energy capacity. This was done for the purpose of decarbonating the atmosphere, a ridiculous purpose in my opinion. So the question is not whether or not global warming exists. I believe global warming exists. It is scientifically proven that it exists, that our planet is becoming warmer by the decade. Perhaps there is a correlation with the emissions of greenhouse gases like CO2 and methane. However, what is completely unscientific is to think that by decarbonating your economy, so by taking out carbon dioxide emitting and methane emitting sources from your economy, you slow this process down. This is an unproven theory. This is just a speculation, and I think it has quite a flimsy scientific basis, because the percentage of CO2 in our atmosphere is very small anyway, and it regulates itself through natural sources. There's this cycle of CO2 through the emissions of the forests. There are all these emissions by the warming of the permafrost. There are all these emissions by forest fires. So it's hard to think that sacrificing your economy has such a big impact on atmospheric CO2 that it might reverse global warming. I'm pretty skeptical that that atmospheric CO2 is the primary driver of this. There have been various cycles of warming and cooling of the planet. There was a little ice age in the medieval period. So I'm not exactly convinced that it's the CO2 percentage driving it, given the fact that it's at such a low percentage anyway in our atmosphere. But even if it were, there are so many natural sources of CO2 that it makes no point in decarbonating our economies, let alone the fact that it's only the developed economies that are doing it, and the developing economies, which are amounting for the biggest part of CO2, are not doing it. So it's just a drop in an ocean that we are doing, but we're sacrificing our economies in the process. This is what I wanted to say about the impact on global warming. But anyway, this is the idea under which the whole process of shutting down coal-powered thermoelectrical plants all across Europe. And in Romania, it had quite devastating effects. So right now, the government keeps on asking Romanians to switch off their power consumption or to diminish their power consumption during the evening when the photovoltaic system no longer pumps in energy, and therefore Romania has to import because it has taken down this thermoelectric capacity. Its hydroelectric capacity is running low because of the low water levels in the dams, and right now even the nuclear power plant is under threat because of its lack of cooling water from the Danube because of the Danube's low levels. So as a consequence of this shortage of energy in the Romanian power grid, the government is asking the people to diminish their consumption during the evening when the stress on the system is highest. And Romania is doing something very silly. It is selling off for cheaps its photovoltaic produced energy to Bulgaria and buying it back in the evening hours from Bulgaria at very high prices. And this is because Romania did not invest in storage capacity for this energy that it produces from renewable sources, even though it's quite important to have something to store that energy in, because otherwise you just produce a whole lot of energy when you don't really need it that much, and you're left out when you actually want to consume it. So what did the Bulgarians do? The Bulgarians used a part of their resilience and whatever, this European Union fund that was launched after COVID to buy batteries to store this energy that they are producing, and even to store neighbors' energy, like in the case of Romania. And they did this under this government, this so-called pro-European government, run by the same forces from Renew Europe, which also ran Romania at the time. And even though they were quite beholden to EU and American interests, and the people there are very brainwashed with American propaganda, and they support the American line on everything. I used to have a friend who is a member of this party and who even works in Brussels, and she's extremely atypical for a Bulgarian in the fact that she completely adheres to the entire American agenda. Most Bulgarians I know are rather skeptical; they don't buy into the bullshit. But these members of of this so-called pro-European party, PPDB, this alliance of parties that are affiliated with Renew Europe, actually one with Renew Europe and the other one with the European People's Party. They are staunch believers in Western propaganda. But even these people were intelligent enough to invest the European Union money into something worthwhile. What did their counterparts in Romania do? They wrote in the project that they submitted that they want to buy hydrogen trains for the Romanian rail network. They could have used that money that was allocated for transportation in all sorts of directions. The railroads, if you electrify rail lines, that's a green investment, because green investments were something earmarked in these European Union funds. So if you just electrify some more rail lines, then you obtain points on the sustainability and green agenda, because you reduce your diesel consumption. The other rail tracks that are not electrified run on diesel, so you reduce emissions. Electricity is considered a green energy source, even though it depends how it is produced. But in the case of Romania, because we don't have a thermal electric system anymore, then it's basically all our energy is green. And what did we choose to do? We chose to put hydrogen trains, which is an experimental technology. It's still at prototype level. So when the tender was announced, there were no bids. There were no companies bidding to offer Romania hydrogen trains, so the money was lost. The money that was earmarked for this investment. So even the pro-Europeans in Bulgaria are smarter than our pro-Europeans, unfortunately. Romania is in this general state of apathy, and it does have something to do with the historical Romanian mentality, and this is what I've touched upon in previous episodes. But it also has to do with the lawfare process that took place 10 years ago and that is still taking place in some fields. Essentially, the Americans set up this unit. It was accompanied by a lot of propaganda saying that the bad guys are going to jail. What actually happened was that the politicians that had a bit of brain and that had a bit of national interest at heart were targeted with fake corruption allegations and were taken out of politics. Some of them were taken to jail on flimsy charges. The majority of them were in the end acquitted after lengthy trials of years, lasting years in the courts. But the effect was that their parties had to renounce them from supporting them in the parliament, and eventually they lost power. They lost power in those respective parties, and they were relegated to being outside politics. The only exception is Victor Ponta, who is now an independent member of parliament. He was the president of the Social Democrats, and he was also the prime minister of Romania, ousted through this collective club fire incident, probably orchestrated, because this is how such things are done. And this is when the pro-Europeans allegedly were brought into power, including Romania's biggest crook. So Romania's biggest crook was then a government minister in this so-called technocratic government that was brought to power after the collective club fire. Dejan Pevski is the biggest crook of Bulgaria, as my Bulgarian sources tell me. The biggest crook of Romania is not somebody of the same social stature as Dejan Pevski. Dejan Pevski is reviled in the entire Bulgarian society. He's even under American sanctions, whereas the Romanian Dejan Pevski organized the reception for the 4th of July, for America's birthday, in which the president of Romania and his handler attended. So this is the level of our Dejan Pevski. And he has complete criminal immunity because he set up this association with previous US ambassadors, and he has the full support of America and Israel. So a completely different matter. And he's a media mogul, just like Dejan Pevski. He controls and supports all of these hitmen. But he will never be prosecuted under this pro-Western regime, because he's one of the main assets that these foreign intelligence groups have in Romania, and his operatives do the dirty work of the empire. So the effect of this so-called anti-corruption drive, in which all sorts of more or less innocent politicians that had Romania's interest at heart were sent to prison and were cast outside politics. The effect of this mechanism was that everybody is pretty much blasé. All the people who work in the public sector now understand that if they do their job well, or if they don't, there will be no feedback onto them, no positive or negative feedback. There are these random, or arbitrary, I would say, corruption charges filed on various people, but it has nothing to do with whether or not those people committed criminal acts. It's all because of political opportunity. It's because of the fact that their conviction might help some political actors that have power over the judiciary right now. So basically, if you do your job right, there will be no rewards. If you do your job wrong, there will be no penalties. There will be penalties if you piss off the wrong people. This is how the system operates in Romania right now. And because of this, nobody even tries. So when you have the people deciding the direction of the country through all sorts of strategic investments, who are completely disincentivized to do their job, then you cannot expect any kind of results. The only result you can expect is disintegration of the country. Slow but sure disintegration, because if everybody does less than the minimum necessary, than the bare minimum to maintain the system, and then makes up for the rest just by doing cosplay and by shifting the blame, if nobody is willing to take political risk to stand up for what's right and for what's correct and for what's good and for what's in the interest of the people, and if such things have even become decredibilized altogether and ridiculed as political goals in themselves, then it would be no longer worth it for any kind of political entrepreneurs to try to run for office, because the only thing they can obtain if they do their job right is to piss off this American-driven system and to get themselves some criminal files and to become victims of lawfare and to be targeted for years on end with the prospect of even criminal convictions. And if you're just the lackey of the system, and if you're a crook and you're a stooge, then you have criminal immunity and you can go about your corrupt dealings. You'll also have favorable press. The so-called pro-European journalists will cover your back and will say that every charge against you is politically motivated, whereas they will be completely oblivious to the very obvious criminal acts of these pro-American oligarchs that run this network of, smear agents, even of political terrorists, as it is now with this group, this terrorist group that functions at the behest of Ukraine, and that has the full support of this Romanian Delan Pevski, who was a government minister in the Cioloș pro-European cabinet. So this is the state of affairs. Nothing good can come out of it. And I guess this process was instigated, this anti-corruption drive in Romania. And Romania was this battleground, this experimental place for such operations, how to take over a country with the means of the judicial system and how to use the criminal justice system to get rid of your political opponents. I guess this was done not just as an experiment. Some people argued, for example, there is this book by this judge, Ion Popa, The Night of Noaptea Dreptății Românești is the Romanian title. It has not been translated. So this judge argues that the lawfare system was put in place in Romania so that it would function as a laboratory to be exported in other places. This very well might be the case, because it was afterwards exported to Argentina and to other Latin American countries to convict people like Lula da Silva, like the Kirchner couple. But even more so, I think it was orchestrated in Romania specifically, because Romania needs to be used in this proxy war against the Russian Federation. So Romania will need to be fed into the conflict alongside Ukraine, and it will function as this strategic depth and as this reservoir of military-aged men to be sent fighting. And this is why politics needs to be kept in check, and any kind of rebels need to be sent to prison early on. so as to make sure that this plan by the Americans has no opposition. I think this is the best explanation for why this lawfare process was carried out in Romania. And it also explains the current developments of the lawfare process. As I've said in previous episodes, it is the president of Romania functioning at the behest of the Americans, orchestrating lawfare against the prime minister, with all sorts of flimsy criminal charges in the county where he used to be head of the county council, president of the county council. So some phony lawfare operations were started in that county, and they were investigated by the anti-terrorism and the anti-organized crime directorate of the prosecutor's office. So a branch of the prosecutor's office that deals with high-level crime. But the people who were charged were berry salesman or a berry cultivator, somebody who was growing wild berries or was picking wild berries and selling them to stores in the county, who allegedly gave some bribes in order to obtain shelf access in supermarkets, and some other guy who organized a charity to take care of homeless people who had no relatives, and because the Romanian state does not offer any kind of shelters for homeless people or hospices for people without means of paying, he set up this NGO to take care of such people, and apparently he was abusing their pensions, the pensions of those that had pensions. So these kinds of flimsy charges that are meant to ricochet towards the president of the county council, they were accompanied by a lot of propaganda, this very dark Holocaust type propaganda with people who were buried in common graves, and who were kept hungry and died of starvation. All of this atrocity propaganda type of operation, in order to somehow through public opinion, as it was the case also with the collective Club Fire trial, through public opinion outrage, to force the judges to issue out some sentences, even though nobody did anything criminal. Anyway, so right now the system is operating a lawfare mechanism against the pro-Europeans, because they want to divert the budget funds towards Rheinmetall and towards a common security architecture of the European Union, rather than to these phony projects of the United States, which just enrich some American oligarchs, but which provide no useful capacity of anything, either in the energy sector or in the military sector. They do not improve Romania's capacity to defend itself or to provide for its energy sector. They're just very expensive ways to give some tribute to our American overlords. And right now, because the president of Romania is functioning at the behest of the Americans, and because this lawfare operation in the judiciary is run by the president of Romania, as it was run also by the previous two presidents, then it is targeted against people who oppose American interests, and this is how the lawfare system operates and continues now. But of course, in such a country where whenever you open the news you find out about another manufactured scandal targeting people who might oppose American interests, in such a country it doesn't pay to try to do something for the national interest. It pays to just take orders from the Americans, as both the people in the opposition and the people who are in power do, and to hope for the best, to pray that you will not be a victim of this internal purge that is carried out every once in a while, just like the Jacobins did, just like the Bolsheviks under Stalin did. So the pro-Europeans are also falling victim to these lawfare operations. In such a country and in such a system, it's hard to devise strategies, it's hard to follow national interest. And I guess Romania will just succumb to this pressure and just accept to be used as this tool by the Americans in order to prop up their Ukraine proxy with whatever it needs. And any kind of dissenting voices will be, well, cancelled, censored, um, sent to jail, or worse, as I said, was the case with this Romanian sociologist which brought John Mersheimer to Bucharest, and in whose conference I attended a few years ago, and who died mysteriously by falling off his bike. So this is what I wanted to tell you. If you like my content, if you'd prefer my content to continue, then please consider joining my channel, becoming a member on my channel, and paying a small monthly fee so as to support my work. Thank you very much, and until next time, take care.